And then there's the big news on Capitol Hill today. That's the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., going before congressional investigators for the first time to answer questions about his meeting during the campaign with Russian nationals who were promising dirt on Hillary Clinton from the Russian government. The president's son was grilled for 5 hours by staff on the Senate Judiciary Committee, with a handful of senators sitting in. And the reaction from Democrats could be summed up in a statement released afterwards by Senator Chris Coons, warning that while Don Jr. wasn't under oath, quote, "It is important to remember that anyone who testifies in front of a Senate committee is under the restrictions of the false statement statute that says material false statements to Congress are criminal and punishable with fines or imprisonment or both." The interview took place behind closed doors in a secure facility on Capitol Hill. The president's son managed to get in and out without having to face the press or cameras. But NBC News obtained a copy of the prepared statement he gave to investigators, which offers yet another explanation for taking that meeting at Trump Tower in June 2016. By our account, at least the third or possibly fourth version to date. First, it was the misleading public statement approved by the president himself, describing the meeting as primarily about an adoption program. Then, after emails emerged showing Don Jr. had been promised, quote, information that would incriminate Hillary, part of Russia, and its government support for Mr. Trump, we were told that seeking dirt on your opponent from a hostile foreign power was perfectly normal.
I think from a practical standpoint, most people would have taken that meeting. It's called opposition research, or even research into your opponent. I've had many people, I have only been in politics for 2 years, but I've had many people call up, oh, gee, we have information on this factor or this person or, frankly, Hillary. That's very standard in politics.
Now, Don Jr. says it was his patriotic duty to take the meeting with Russian agents, quote, to the extent they had information concerning the fitness, character, or qualifications of a presidential candidate, I believe that I should at least hear them out. While he previously insisted the whole meeting was above board, Don Jr. now acknowledges the potential red flags, telling the committee, depending on what, if any, information they had, I could then consult with counsel to make an informed decision as to whether to give it further consideration. And in his statement, the president's son confirms for the first time what we, right here on this show, suspected, that there were undisclosed phone calls between Don Jr. and his intermediaries, in addition to the email traffic setting up the meeting. According to Don Jr., his phone records show 3 short phone calls with Emin Agalarov. Remember, that's the Russian pop star connected to the Trump family business through his father, who helped set up the meeting. But Don Jr. says, I do not recall speaking to Emin. It is possible we left each other voicemail messages. I simply do not remember. He told the committee he never discussed the meeting again after it took place or even gave it a second thought. And he says neither he nor anyone colluded with a foreign government during the campaign. Following his 5-hour interview today, Don Jr. released a statement thanking the committee for their professionalism, emphasizing his own candor, and adding, quote, I trust this interview fully satisfied their inquiry. But the members of the committee don't sound satisfied. According to Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal, this won't be Don Jr.'s last trip to Capitol Hill.
Today was another step, but more like a beginning, because he needs to come before the Judiciary Committee in public, under oath, answer many of these same questions, because today he raised questions as well as answering, in fact, raised more questions perhaps than he answered.
Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, a member of the House Intelligence Committee, which is conducting its own investigation of the Trump campaign's potential ties to Russia. And Congressman, based on the reports that are available publicly, are you satisfied that Don Jr. has answered all the questions he needs to answer?
Good evening, Chris. And first, just with respect to that storm, I want to assure the stranded Americans in the Caribbean islands that Republicans and I are working together in a bipartisan way to get them out of there. They are already suffering. I'm working with them tonight on that with the State Department. With respect to Don Jr., Chris, no, not at all. It's time for him to come clean, under oath. Tell us the prologue and the epilogue from that contact he had at Trump Tower. It's also remarkable, Chris, that he doesn't recall the follow-up phone calls. This sounds a lot like Jared Kushner, who didn't even recall the meeting. It's like possible side effects from meeting with Russians include completely forgetting that the meetings even ever happened.
Let me ask you then, straight up, do you not believe them? When they say, when Don Jr. says, I don't remember, is he lying?
it is unbelievable that they would have so many meetings with a foreign adversary during the election and then just completely not be able to recall them. So I don't believe them. And there's too many of them who have failed to recall. There's no innocent explanation any further. It's a pattern of deception, a pattern of failing to recall, and it looks like a pattern to avoid accountability.
Richard Blumenthal says he wants to see John Jr. back. There's all sorts of questions about these various lines of investigation. There's the Senate Judiciary Committee, there's the Senate Intelligence Committee, there's your committee in the House Intelligence Committee. Are you planning to bring Don Jr. in?
We would like him in. Yes, we want everyone who was a part of that email chain and who attended the Trump Tower meeting. Yes, we want to hear from them all with their hand raised under oath.
Do you believe that nothing happened as a result of that meeting, that no one ever talked about it again?
No, it doesn't make sense, Chris. Again, when you read the email exchange, it looks like there was a prior existing relationship. And when you hear from, Don Jr. and the limited information that Jared Kushner provides, it's hard to imagine that there wasn't follow-up. And so that's why the best thing that the president can do and the people on his team can do is to just come forward and be forthcoming about what happened, what were the personal, political, and financial relationships. And also for Republicans to show unity with Democrats in wanting to get to the bottom of this, because our disunity only sharpens the knives for the Russians and prevents us from strengthening our own shield as we go to the next election.
Finally, a member of your committee, the chair of your committee, Devin Nunes, who sort of had recused himself of this inquiry, is now threatening contempt at Attorney General and the director of the FBI over any documents not being turned over related to that infamous Steele dossier. What is your reaction to that?
It slows us down, Chris. He shouldn't be a part of anything involving Russia. He had recused himself. He's also asking for something that he has not been denied. The custom has been that Republicans and Democrats ask for voluntary cooperation from witnesses. If they deny it, then we consider sending a subpoena. There's no evidence that they were denied this, and what they're trying to do is to undermine the purpose behind the Steele dossier rather than looking at what was alleged in the Steele dossier. Again, it's just a misguided way of conducting this investigation, and the worst thing that we're doing is showing disunity and making it easier for the Russians to come at us again.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.